Hello, this is John Sarver, and welcome to the My Solar Story series, sponsored by GLREA in the Michigan Solar Users Network. Tonight we have Heidi Porter, who lives in Meridian Township, who's going to talk about the two systems that are on her roofs, as you can see in the picture. And she's going to talk about her two solar systems and also some of the energy efficiency measures that she put on or implemented prior to the solar. And please mute yourself until we get to the question and answer period. After Heidi's presentation, you can unmute yourself to ask a question directly. And it was suggested too that, you know, this is being recorded, and if for some reason you didn't want to be recorded, you could always put your picture, you know, as in place of the video. And so with that, let me turn it over to Heidi.
Hi. So this is a picture of our two solar systems, and we'll tell you a little bit about how we got here. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was that a lot of times people think there's not enough sun in Michigan. And this is a screenshot from a friend of mine's very comparable system in North Carolina. And you can clearly see in January, February, September, December, they're at about half production of solar. And so the South has winter too. And we often think about the South as, you know, the great place for solar, and Michigan, the not so great place for solar. But I also want to point out another thing that in terms of sun and climate and solar use in Michigan, that a friend of mine sent me today about climate change. And the interesting thing in here was, I thought I had, but that they talk about once chilly places like Minnesota, Michigan, they're talking about they are going to become more temperate, verdant, and inviting, which means they're going to be even more amenable to solar, as there'll be more sun and more power generated by solar. And the other thing it says in here, just you know, on the side, is that, you know, Detroit and other cities in this area may have a big comeback because of that. So it's a disturbing article, but it's interesting from the perspective of solar in Michigan, and that there will be more sun, it will get hotter. So when I started out looking for solar companies up in Michigan, around, I might have started in 2015 or even 2014, I was just Googling and calling companies. They said, no, we don't do residential. I didn't know that many people in the area, and I kept asking who would know about solar and who could install it for me. And I finally found someone who knew, named Joanne Render, who is also part of our Meridian Township energy team. And she was able to give me some recommendations for a solar company. And we really wanted to get our solar in that time frame, 2015, 2016, because net metering was in the legislature to go away pretty quickly. That didn't happen. It took a while, you know, not surprising sometimes in government. But we wanted to get a system, or at least an initial system on before it went away. So now when you want to go find an installer and go solar, only 3 to 4 years later, you can go up on this Meridian Township link, and there's a list of installers there. There's a list of Meridian solar owners that you can ask for advice. And then you can also listen to these solar stories live or on YouTube. So there's, you know, just in 3 to 4 years, things have changed a lot in terms of availability of information and experience and references, etc. So that's pretty cool. So when you start to think about solar, you have to look at how much energy are you using in your home. And when you start to do that, you know, and say, okay, I need this many panels to cover my energy usage, you start to think, well, how can I reduce my energy usage so I don't need to buy so many panels? And there's And so it's a kind of a virtuous cycle. When you start to look at solar, you start to look at your energy use. It makes you want to reduce some of your energy. And I like to think of it in 3 R's of energy, and there might be another one, but you can start by refusing to, you can use less energy, you know, turning off lights is the basic one. You can reduce your use of energy via things we've done, like insulating our crawl space and insulating all the walls. We have a 1950s house, um, putting in tankless water heater. There's various things you can do to promote energy efficiency. And then there's the reuse of energy, right? Which is not reducing your energy efficiency, but you're reusing the sun. You know, you're not using up the sun, you're just reusing it. So it's renewable. So here's our house before the first solar installation. And, you know, when we were looking at this, we needed to re-roof, but we were also putting on an addition on the main house. So what we did to get solar sooner was we put it on the back of the garage. So, and it faces southeast here. So this is our garage over here. So it was in 2016. It was actually snowing some of the time they were doing the install. And we went with a company called Peninsula Solar, mainly because I thought the owner was just very knowledgeable. I really trusted him. It wasn't just because he was one of the first companies I found. I did find other companies eventually. And at the time, we did not have a local solar installer in the Meridian Township area. So he was up in the peninsula, he came down here, him and his team installed on the back of the garage. They also knew roofing, and so they were able to re-roof the garage before we put the solar panels on. However, that's not totally necessary. You can always take panels off and put them back on. You know, it's not as big a job as installing them initially. So here's the specs on what we put on at first. And it was 12 panels stacked 6 on 6, and you'll see in a second. And there they are, one of the not snowing days, putting it on. And why were we doing this? Well, we were doing it to reduce our carbon footprint, to save some money in the long run. It's more modern, moving towards the future. And then some of the issues we had were just, you know, our concerns we had was that we're facing southeast, and we also had a tree, so there's some shade during the day. So we did remove that tree, which, you know, is not totally green or environmental, but it did increase our solar production. We didn't have any installation issues, and in fact, we haven't had any maintenance issues at all. So it's been 4 years now this spring, 4.5 years, and we haven't had any issues. And we don't expect to have any issues. Solar's pretty low maintenance. Connection issues, well, that was an interesting thing that surprised me at first, was when we first applied to Consumers Energy, we must have gotten 3 feet of papers of, you know, other things we could do instead of put solar on our house. And so it was kind of suspicious when we had to wait a long time to get our solar connected from Consumers. But we had a lot of papers in case we wanted to keep warm to burn of the Consumers Energies trying to get us to do a different renewable source. And I think that's changed in 4 years as well. So the advice I would have had, and this is, you know, I did a presentation on our phase 1, I've done this for several years, is to find a trusted advisor. And now you have different homeowners like myself, and John Sarver's one of them, and Roger Eberhardt here in Meridian Township, who you can talk to and look at their solar systems a lot of times if they're, you know, amenable. And then the other advice is, get a monitor. We didn't get a monitor at first because we thought, oh, we don't have to see exactly what we're producing. You know, it's fine. We see our energy bills and what we save. And you'll see when I show my energy bills that, you know, you can see what you save, but you kind of want to know what you're saving overall, which the monitor will get you to that. So our utility connection after the phase 1, and then our installation of 12 panels on the back of the garage. And it was just really fun. That was my first solar installation, and it was just fabulous to have that up there. And so, of course, I'm sorry. A couple other things about this installation was, I think I already said that we did it with the re-roof. We also did a lot of energy improvements before we got the panels. We didn't have air conditioning, so we weren't using a ton of energy. So we were somewhat concerned with the net metering program. You can't produce too much energy because you're not supposed to be, you know, an energy company making money off that. But then we did add in addition an air conditioning in 2017. So we did balance out some energy improvements with some more energy use, because air conditioning does use a bit of energy. So this is what you get from consumers. You get if anyone, I'll hold it up here, you get a spreadsheet that I guess is hand calculated. I've heard some of it, and they enter some of this manually. I think it is an Excel spreadsheet, but this, I've just kind of pulled some of it out so you can see exactly what net metering is, you know, you have this, what you use at night, or because you don't produce enough, you know, or because it's rainy and you're not producing. So this is what you use from consumers, these two lines. And this is from our first installation. So this is, we had a lot less energy. We didn't have air conditioning. We didn't have an extra freezer that we got during the pandemic. And this is what we produced, the outflow, but that's not the complete of what we produced, you know, because we used some. But we basically, net metering is, you have the inflow that you're getting from consumers, you have the outflow that you send out to them after whatever you use yourself during the day when there's solar energy, and then you get a net excess generation credit. And during that time, we got, you know, this -$8 or -$3. And it really varies depending on the month and the sun, etc., for that first installation. So let's see. The cost of that installation was about $10,000. I took out the cost of the re-roof because the re-roof, and there's some debate about that. The re-roof I probably could have deducted because I put solar on, but I don't know too much about that, so I won't get into that. This was just the system, not the re-roof, and then the tax deduction, so it was a net cost of $10,000. And at that time, there was still a 30% tax deduction, and I'm not sure, it's either 26 or 22 now. We can discuss that at the end. So, you know, we were so happy with that first installation that we decided we needed more. And so we went with the newish local company, Absolute Environmental Solutions, because they didn't need to come down from up north. And in these 3 years, the demand for solar has really increased. And so the other company was pretty busy at that time. So we went with the local company because we love both companies. And we were still in net metering. And when we did that first system, I forgot to mention that we knew we were going to do a second system. So we had it set up to expand to an additional system. And I hope no one from consumers is on here, because, you know, the other goal was just to get in the net metering and then we add more later. But, and we put this on but the net metering didn't go away before we put on the second system. So it's kind of moot at this point. So this one we put on the back main roof of our house over the living and dining room, and we put 9 more modules on. And we did them black because it integrated more with the roof. And just a reminder of what it looked like before the first installation. This is before the first. Then this is before the second. And see, we put a black roof on. And so then when we go back to the installation, you can see we put black panels on as well. And here's the addition here. So it's kind of L-shaped. And so again, it was, you know, the same kind of motivation, just more of, I guess, less energy use, more savings, etc., less carbon footprint. So there's our installation together. I got this on a sunny day last Friday. The 9 panels here, the 12 panels here, and these are black, similar to the roof. And then I wanted to mention something else, because the friend of mine that has the solar installation in North Carolina has the same shape of house. It's about a third bigger, but they put their solar panels on the addition part of the house. So that's another, you can get creative. And they also could have put them on the front of the house, and they said they're going to put them on the front of the house when they re-roof, but for now they have them on the addition here. I think, it's really your choice where is going to be the best for your particular power production, balanced with, the look of your house. So there's some unintentional energy efficiency that you do get out of solar panels in the summer, and that's that they absorb some heat from the sun, which is great because ours second phase of panels is right over the living room and dining room. So it keeps it a little lower and keeps the AC need lower. And we chose black shingles, not just for the look, but because, we use more energy in the winter, and we felt that would, keep some warmth in. And to be fair, the fact that the solar panels absorb some sun in the summer, they do the same thing in the winter, right? So it doesn't heat as well, but when there's snow on the panels, that doesn't really make much of a difference, which happens in Michigan still. So the cost of the second system was $5,400, and I looked at this last night, and the other thing is that the cost went down pretty significantly between 2016 and 2019 per panel. So that was also kind of interesting. So people who are buying now are having a lower payback, and I think John Sarver talked about that on his talk. The difference in cost when he did his first installation and second installation. So you can look at his story too. And there's our phase 2 utility connection. And then, you have these, monitors, meters, and papers you get. So you have your meters with the consumer's readings. And then you have your papers you get that I showed. This is what you get in the mail that shows your inflow and outflow. And then, we got these monitors, and I can log in and show the monitor, but, I get this monitor production. I can see what our two systems together produced for the month. And so then I can approximate how much money I'm saving each month. And if you look at this is from the papers that I just showed, this inflow and outflow. We have quite a bit more this year. Obviously we're at home all the time and using air conditioning during the day a lot. And so we don't have as much credit. In fact, we paid no, that is net excess there in May, June. But we didn't have any excess in June and July. But you can see what you're saving from the production on the M-phase monitor. And these monitors, you can also, they usually have Android or iPad or iPhone apps for them. If you want to see, you can be anywhere and see that they're working. And the other thing about the monitor is it'll alert you if anything is wrong with one of your panels. Like I said, that's very rare, but I've heard it happen, and it'll alert you and you can get it fixed. And a lot of times they're under warranty. So this is what, and I can log in and show you the monitor screen. Maybe I should have taken a screenshot, but this is our bill from May to June. And so you can see here's the credit we got from our solar outflow to consumers. And then here was our total energy charges for the month. And this energy charges, they just deduct this balance for this 58 off. And so we just paid $28. And so they deduct this off both of them. But, Yeah, and so that's what we paid is $28. So you can kind of see on the bill, but the addendum comes with the paper spreadsheet here. So if anyone wants to see the monitor screen, I can also log in and show that. But that was the end of my presentation. And I just had a couple comments on frequently asked questions or things I didn't really know when we first got our first solar was, what about snow? And I actually think it was David Arnosti that told us about his big rake where he raked off his panels. But we actually don't, we sometimes, if there's a lot of snow, we do, rake it off eventually. But we don't typically take the snow off our panels. It really just depends. And then the other thing was we had a huge hailstorm in 2017, and I really thought, I don't know if anyone remembers this in Meridian Township, the hailstorm, I think it shattered some windows at like some stores. They were huge hail, and it did nothing to our solar panels. And so I had a concern that, that was gonna crack, but nothing happened. And then the third thing is, of course, power outages that happen. When your power's down, if you're tied to the consumer's grid, your power's down. Your solar's not going to give you power when the consumer's grid is down. The way they typically set up the solar and tie it in with the grid. There might be a way around that, and maybe someone in the discussion would know. In this typical kind of system where you don't have batteries, I don't have battery backup or anything like that. So that is the end of my presentation. If we want to have any discussion. Just kind of things, and this is, we're in the technology field and this happens sometimes, right, is, you're going to do things in phases sometimes, but sometimes the technology is not going to be able to work together. And so we actually can't see we can see our whole system's production, but we can't get some of these graphs and reports for both systems. And that's okay, unless you really want to, if you need to, if you like to watch these, and I wouldn't mind, but our graphs only show one of our system and our reports only show one of our systems. But really what we care about is what we're producing as a whole, and I can look at that easily. And I pulled up here, this is last year the 17th to this year the 17th, and so that was our total production, 5.79. But we had some technology that couldn't quite be tied together within Enphase, even though it was both Enphase monitors, if I'm saying that correctly.
Hey, Heidi, would you do anything differently if you were going to do it over again?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, like I said, the first installation, I would have gotten a monitor right away. I would have done that so that we could see what we were producing right away. We didn't get one for another year and a half. And then I can't think of it. I guess I would, maybe I would have even done it. So, if we had done the second 9 on the main living area roof, if we had done those earlier, I mean, I guess it's, we would have had more production for a few years, and then we could have just taken them off with the re-roof. And so it might have just been a wash, right? If we had gotten them earlier. It's hard to say. So I can't think of any other advice other than the things I gave in the talk.
Other questions for Heidi? Anybody, if you want, just unmute yourself.
So I have a question, and I guess it's for Heidi, but it's also for others as well. I'm not getting my system until next week, and it's going to be on the second floor. So there's really no way for me to clean off the snow. It's the kind of thing that I would do if I could, but I don't think I can. So I'm really curious what people's experiences are with snow on the panels. If you don't do anything, how much do you lose? How likely is it that the snow is going to either melt or slide off quickly. I'm just trying to get a preview of what the impact is from the snow.
Yeah, I have issues with snow because both my first and my second systems are very high up on the roof, and so I actually bought a roof rake to kind of see if I could get some of the snow away, but it was too hard because of the distance. So I basically don't do anything, and obviously it depends on how much snow comes. The typical situation is, I lose a day or two before it melts off. There has been, I think, one situation during the past 10 years where, we had a really heavy snow in the Lansing area, and it just took a while to slide off. But, it's kind of from my perspective, it's kind of, I'm losing some production, but it's kind of a minor issue. I certainly am not going to risk my life by trying to go up on my roof in February.
Well, and even with a ranch house, which, we learned about the roof rake from David, who must have a ranch house also, you're still out there kind of in the snow, in the ice, trying to rake it off. And so we did it a lot the first year and then not so much after that. Yeah, you're going to lose some production, but how much sun are you getting during that time anyways? If there's sun, it's probably melting soon. Yeah.
Okay, good to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other
Yeah,
questions?
Heidi, this is Roger. Do you have more plans coming up? Is the phase 2 the end of it?
Well, we've thought about the battery storage as well. That's but right now we don't have specific plans other than possibly an electric vehicle or solar. Doing something with solar with that, but no specific plans.
How would a battery integrate with the Enphase system? Since it's all AC, you'd have to have some sort of AC coupling to your battery. And I've heard that can be really tricky and unreliable.
Who knows about the battery? Roger, do you?
Not coupled to a grid tied system. I'm not familiar with grid tie with batteries yet.
The different solar installers offer different battery systems. So there's the green panel offers Tesla batteries, which are fairly compact, but they're very expensive. And same with AES that did my installation. They offered batteries, but it would have added $10,000 to the cost of the project. So it wasn't worth it. I mean, I've got a generator now for the case of the ice storm.
Well, I do have batteries on my system, but they're on the DC side of the system. And I understood, maybe this is obsolete now, that the way you tie a battery to an AC system requires creating kind of a microgrid in your house that might not integrate well with the utility grid.
Hey, John, could you share what was your motivations for getting a battery system?
Oh, well, it was because the power where I live, DTE at the very, very fringe of their service area, was really unreliable. And I've had it for 3.5 years now, and I just love it. The power goes out for the whole neighborhood, and yet I don't even know that the power went out. I wish I could sell some of my electricity to the neighbors, but that's against the rules yet.
And hey, John, do you have enough battery that you really are able to run everything, or do you kind of just run essential functions?
Well, we have 6 circuits that we decided to cover with the battery backup. The well and the refrigerator and several of the lighting circuits, but that's enough that with just my wife and me in the house, everything's covered that we're using The only thing that would be left out is maybe a couple of bedrooms.
Yeah. I don't really have any firsthand experience with batteries. I know I was talking to a good friend of mine who was in the process of getting some of the Tesla batteries, and I was interested with him what he was looking at, because he lost power too. He kind of frequently loses power enough that it was worth his while to actually put in a solar system. He already had a small wind generator. He's over near Lake Michigan, and he's primarily getting a battery because he loses power frequently enough. But I was kind of exploring with him how much capacity he had, and the way he was setting it up, he would have enough power to last him, a couple days, unless it, if it was cloudy. And of course, if the sun was shining, of course, it would go for quite a while. He said if he had good weather, basically, with the battery system he was putting in place, he could probably go for a week or who knows how long. So that is one issue too when people look into batteries, is you have to kind of think through, do you want to have everything powered? Can you just live with a few critical circuits? How many days do you need? Where I am in the East Lansing area, I've lost power, but I've never really lost power for more than 2 or 3 days. But I know there's other people that can lose power for a week or longer.
John, can I pipe in? Because I had batteries in ancient history.
Oh, that's right.
I had seven at my rectory back in 2001. I had 7 circuits running off the grid, and they were I had hybrid wind and PV, and I averaged 2 days out of the year when I had to go to wind up power. So the batteries worked fine, and they're pretty essential circuits that I was running as well.
This is John Freeman. I have a couple comments as well. I think just like Heidi mentioned that the cost of installing the solar panels has gone down over the course of the 3 years between her first system and her second system, I think it's pretty clear that the price of batteries are coming down as well, especially as Tesla finalizes the new manufacturing plant in Nevada. And I think they're going to build another one, I think in New York. The other thing is that with the developments by consumers where they're trying to dramatically cut back on the amount of the credit that they're going to award people for exporting extra energy to the grid, people may want to install batteries so that everything is behind the meter and they don't even think in terms of exporting energy to the grid, because that might not be as economical as it was when Heidi installed her system, or frankly, when I installed my system under DTE, which was about 1.5 years ago. So we may move to a model where we incorporate batteries and all the extra electricity our systems produce habitually go into the batteries and never get exported to the grid. And so we can't get scammed by the utilities.
Yeah, and the guy who did our first system, Peninsula Solar, at that time, he said exactly what John is saying, is I would wait for the battery cost to come down. But then, John Sarver, you had a Michigan Energy Options talk where a gentleman, was it Jeremy, or talked about batteries. And that was really interesting. But one of the points he made, and so you just need to be aware of this, right, when you get batteries, is that's what he gets calls about, is batteries. He doesn't get calls for any maintenance on solar panels usually, or that's very rare, but he gets a lot of calls for battery issues. Didn't he say that?
Yeah, although that presentation was a while back, and
Yeah.
The technology is probably getting better and also getting
That's true.
better, like John mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But I was going to say, I think it would be nice to have him again, or someone on batteries, have a session like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some of the some of these My Solar stories, and they are on the YouTube channel, Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association's channel on YouTube. Some of the presentations that have been made, including John they do have batteries, and so
Oh.
those issues are discussed. So that's kind of a resource for folks
Oh, okay.
to kind of go back and kind of look at some of those stories.
Okay.
But
A question for John Growley. Your battery system, are you also grid tied? And how do those two interact when the grid goes away?
Well, I can answer that. In my case, the system disconnects from the grid, and the batteries take over and run the circuits that I've got attached as critical circuits, we call them.
That's great.
So there's no glitch whatsoever. Like I said, we don't even know that the power fails. The best way we know that the power failed is that we can hear our neighbor's generator come on.
So your inverter, so you're driven off your inverter all the time and it's phase locked to the line. So when the line goes away, the inverter then pulls directly from the battery, so it would even drop a single cycle?
Right, in effect. Although when the grid is up, I'm told, my hardware is made by Outback. I'm told that there's a pass-through mode in the Outback inverter, so that when it knows the grid's up and it needs to provide the house electricity, it just passes it through. But you're right, it's constantly watching the grid and synchronized to it, so that the moment the grid goes down, it can step in.
And your batteries, are they AGM or flooded?
They're AGM.
Okay. Trojan probably?
No, they were made by Outback, or at least they've got the Outback name on them.
Oh, okay. And they'll hold up for roughly how long?
Well, they're a model of battery that's designed for a grid-tied system like mine, which where they're expected to stay fully charged almost all the time. So they're they're not designed for regular deep cycling like an off-grid battery would be. And they say that they'll last about 15 years, although they don't have a warranty that long, but that's what they expect.
Okay, but what I was asking is, what is typical hold-up time if you lose the grid and don't have sun? Or how many ampere hours have you got typically?
Oh, I don't have the specs in my mind. I'd have to look that up, but
yeah.
It's when we designed it, I was expecting it to last about, the batteries should last for our typical use in the house for 2 days of complete black, no sun whatsoever. And if the sun comes out even like 50%, then we can probably run indefinitely.
So that's a sizable battery bank then.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't give you the actual size.
Right. Okay.
8 huge 12-volt batteries in a 48-volt bank.
Other questions for Heidi or for any of us, I guess? Okay, well, thank you again, Heidi, for the presentation, and thank you everybody else for participating and for sharing your own experiences.
I have a question for the group. It didn't relate to this particular installation, so I was waiting for the end.
Sure.
So I'm curious how many people might be interested in a future conference call talking about the legal issues, like in a microgrid, selling electricity. I am building a website for Ann Arbor microgrid.com. There's just a maintenance page there now, but there is a link to a social network that I've built, and you can go there and join the group, and you can see videos that I put in there. That's neighborsquad.org, a different website. You can see videos in there of Brooklyn microgrid and all kinds of things that have gone on where the state laws are different. So that's one legal issue that I'm interested in. And I have a political past. I was elected to Ann Arbor City Council in 2006. And my wife and I were web developers 1 and 2 for Occupy Wall Street. So we're activists and would like to not be controlled by the electric utility companies. And the other thing that I'm interested in terms of legal issues, if we're pushing to be able to move electricity across lines, and I'm right across the street from St. Thomas Church in Ann Arbor, and they have a gigantic parking lot. And I told them that if they put a solar canopy over their parking lot, I'd like to be the first homeowner in the neighborhood to buy electricity for them. And I'm in a highly dense area, so I'm downtown living. It's a one-family house, but my neighbors are 9 feet from my house. So it's a dense area, and a whole bunch of houses up and down the block. I've been talking to my neighbors, and they would love to do something like this. And I know both our state rep and our state Senate rep, and I'll be talking to them about this. Another sort of legal thing related to this, and I see, some people here might be about my age. I'm 70 years old. I may be older than a bunch of you, but a bunch of you are at least over 50. So I'm on a fixed income. I don't pay taxes. I used to run my own software company. I had a bad accident, so I haven't been working in a couple of years, so I don't pay any taxes. And I'm living off of savings. I pay a lot of real estate tax here in Ann Arbor. And I'm about to talk to my city council representative. It probably won't go anywhere, but I'd like to at least get some publicity out of it, even if they never pass anything. But Ann Arbor has talked about A2 net zero and how the city is supposed to be carbon neutral by 2030. Well, what about people like me who are homeowners on fixed incomes, and we're paying little or no federal income tax, but we're paying a fortune in real estate tax? Shouldn't we be, even if it's a tiny incentive, and I wonder if anybody in any other cities that pay, real estate tax have thought about this. And if not, please do think about it. And, let's talk about that along with selling electricity to your neighbor. I had a fantasy of just batteries on a trolley that could go from the church across the street to my house.
Well, this is John Freeman. I'm the executive director of GLREA, and all I can say is elections matter at the federal and state and the local arenas. The more candidates who become elected officials who support renewable energy and solar, then the more creative we can get in changing the law that will be supportive in terms of expanding the use of solar in many creative ways. But currently, public policy is dictated so much by federal and state law, and it's challenging to change it unless we have a majority of the legislators who are very supportive of renewable energy. So as we approach this fall election, I hope everybody examines who's running for office and look and see what their positions are on renewable energy and make that one of the criteria from which they decide whom to vote for.
Well, I beyond just, voting, I'm, actively, I've known State Representative Yusuf Rabi since he was a kid. And there are a group of us who are trying to help him put like-minded people in the House. So John, I'll contact you to see, more information about what you're already doing with people like Yusuf Rabi, and how we can help them to have the right talking points. And for other people who are, running for office, I think, this is an issue where whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you're a Republican and you hate big government, you should also hate the big utility companies.
Well, it's true. I'll make one final comment, then I'll turn it back to John Sarver. I think you're right. It isn't per se a partisan issue, but it is very clear that the utilities understand the importance of policy that's determined by the state legislature as well as at the federal government. So they are active players in Lansing in terms of lobbyists and giving campaign contributions. And so that's a huge factor in terms of determining who legislators, where they end up in terms of whether they're for progressive policies regarding solar or whether they're frankly carrying water for the utilities, so to speak. Back to you, John.
Can I ask a question, John Freeman?
Of course.
Can you put that list of candidates? You had a list of candidates in an email. Can you put that on the GLREA website or not?
I can't.
Okay.
Because
that would be useful. Yeah.
Yeah. GLREA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have to be careful. We can't directly be getting involved with helping to elect people. So I was doing that project in my spare time on the side. But I think it's clear that we need to continue to do this in the future. And I'm going to talk to my board probably in December about establishing a political action committee for the next cycle, political cycle, so it'll be easier to raise funds directly and to be able to directly engage the election of candidates.
Hey, Ryan, your suggestion about having a future kind of Zoom meeting or a conference call to kind of address some of these kind of legal and other issues related to microgrids and selling power and all that stuff is, I think, is a good idea. I would encourage you to think about whether you'd like to actually host that. Certainly, if you want to host that, GLRA can co-sponsor and we can get the word out to folks that I think would be interested in that. If you don't want to take on hosting a Zoom meeting like this, we could certainly consider doing one.
I could probably do it. I'm a quadriplegic, so my hands don't work real well. That's the only, so I may just call on, someone else to be like muting or unmuting people if that becomes necessary.
Okay, but that sounds like you might be interested in kind of.
I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested. I just have to make sure I'm not
okay.
Overcommitted. Because I'm involved with lots of things for the next 6 weeks with Sunrise Movement, and I'm trying to start a Michigan chapter of the Internet Society. So my two main things are decentralizing electricity and the internet. Nobody owns the internet. People think that Comcast and AT&T and Verizon own it, but the internet is just a set of protocols that enables us to talk to each other, and that should be decentralized, and electricity should be decentralized.
Well, again, Ron, if you kind of take that on at some point, would be happy to kind of get the word out and let people know that a session is going to be held on those topics. The other thing we can do is we could try to specifically invite some people to that session to be kind of resource people. Tom Stanton comes to mind. He's a national researcher on utility issues and knows quite a bit about microgrids. And of course, John Freeman is dealing with the legislature. There's a microgrid bill that has been introduced in the legislature. So there's all those sorts of issues too, that these policies are being discussed. And actually, Representative Robbie would be an excellent person to have join us for a session like that for obvious reasons. He's been very involved in all these issues and is very active in the legislature. So he would be kind of a great resource person for a future session.
Wonderful.
Ed Rivet as well, John.
Yep.
He'd be another good person.
Yep. Yeah. So give it some thought, Ron, and you know, we'd be happy to work with you on that. And any other questions or comments before we break? Okay, I've got about 5 minutes to 8. Hey, thank you everybody for attending. And again, Heidi, thank you for making such a good presentation. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Go
Thank
Solar.
you.
Bye.